The latest lines from the health ministry there saying that hundreds of people there in Lebanon there are hundreds of casualties, including dead and wounded, right.
Well, the Zionists are refusing to accept the conditions put by the empire that gives them all their weapons and all their protection. And they have been bombing Lebanon nonstop. I think more than 30 attacks have happened since the ceasefire came into effect. Congratulations to the Iranian people. Of course, there's a lot to talk about and hope. We don't know where things are going to go, but for now, it's definitely one of the biggest victories in anti-imperialism, anti-colonialism, human struggle in 100 years.
Yeah. And let's start with that, Laith. What's going on? We've learned yesterday from the ceasefire, both Donald Trump and Iranians announced the ceasefire happening 2 weeks ceasefire. They're going to negotiate. And it was told by the Pakistani prime minister that Lebanon is part of this. Hezbollah is part of this ceasefire. What is happening right now in Lebanon?
Well, the Zionists are refusing to accept the conditions put by the empire that gives them all their weapons and all their protection. And they have been bombing Lebanon nonstop. I think more than 30 attacks have happened since the ceasefire came into effect. Up until now, Hezbollah is not responding to these attacks, but on the ground, in terms of movements of Israeli soldiers attempting to advance or anything like this, that stopped. So what we have been seeing since the ceasefire has been called is the Zionists attacking from the air at random cars and homes and locations around Lebanon. So it's a lash out by Netanyahu trying to score some points for his public consumption only, not points in terms of military advancement or anything like this. But again, we don't know where this is going to go. The whole ceasefire that is now been declared for 2 weeks is really very fragile, especially with the imperial capital weakening. You know, our viewers, if some of them may remember history lessons looking at how the Roman Empire, for instance, collapsed, and how once the core of an empire starts weakening, what happens in the crucial, important provinces. And in this situation, we can remember how the empire was split in two, with the Eastern Empire and the Western Roman Empire. And we have the words of Netanyahu over the last few weeks talking about a Jewish empire in Western Asia. The collapse of American hegemony in this region may give the delusions to Netanyahu to be able to create an Eastern Empire, Eastern Roman Empire, stationed around Tel Aviv. And as we saw over the last few hours, with the Emiratis and the Saudis also refusing the ceasefire, firing drones and missiles on Iranian oil infrastructure in the islands of the Persian Gulf. And we saw Iran responding, by the way, to those attacks. So this shows us that, you know, the absence of the United States from this war, even if this ceasefire holds between the United States and Iran, these local provinces, former important provinces, may see themselves as having to fight this by themselves, and of course it's suicidal. And it's Iran in its last wave before the ceasefire came into effect, its 100th wave, hit targets of Saudi oil infrastructure all the way in the Hijaz and on the Red Sea. And I think this is why the United States rushed immediately to accept the ceasefire.
Yeah. What you mentioned, the attack on Syria Island by it was by the Iranian state media. They said it was UAE, and because they hit back at Kuwait and UAE, both of them, the response was to UAE and Kuwait. Laith, do you think that? I think the importance of what has happened, and in Israel, you see the opposition of Benjamin Netanyahu lashing out, somehow attacking Benjamin Netanyahu. It was a total defeat for Benjamin Netanyahu. This war, the whole war, was a total defeat for him. On the other hand, we've seen the same thing in the Arab states, in the Persian, in GCC countries, basically the same thing happening. How do you see these two parties, which we know when it comes to the UAE? UAE is not a country. They're doing whatever Israel is asking them to do. We know that. And how do you see the leverage that Israel may have on these countries to sabotage everything? We know that Israel, as you've mentioned, is attacking Lebanon. But I mean, considering all of these countries, UAE, Kuwait, and together with Israel, how do you see the capacity of these countries to sabotage everything?
Yeah, we go back again to the Roman example. Remember Caesar, when he won his campaigns in Gaul and what is now France, and these victories raised him to a point where he was able to do a coup against the emperor. Okay, he had that. So Netanyahu sees himself as he has achieved in his mind military victories that the empire, the capital of the empire, and the emperor, currently Trump, couldn't achieve. Whether he thinks that the killing of the leadership of the resistance in Lebanon, and or the destruction of Syria, and the fall of Assad, and or the mass genocide in Gaza. So at this moment, Netanyahu thinks that he can go ahead without the empire and declare himself the emperor, as we see. And these vassals in the region, the Saudis, the Kuwaitis, the Emirati, the Qatari, the Bahraini, quote unquote royal families, they see that if the United States leaves, they are gone. They cannot exist. Even Iran insisting to give Oman half of the proceeds of the fee levies for crossing into the Hormuz Strait, that is a death note for all the other vassals in the Arabian Peninsula. Why? Because Oman is the cultural hub of the Arabian Peninsula. There's only 3 cultural hubs: Oman, Yemen, and the Hijaz. And Oman had a big population, but very little oil or gas. This is why the British cut off the Emirates, which were called the Desert of Oman, and its field to cut down Oman. And so what we see is that Oman is going to rise now. It's going to become the most important Arabian, state in the peninsula because of this. And this means the end of the other vassals. So what I'm saying is that these vassals are going to hitch their boat to the Israelis right now, and Netanyahu, since Trump and the empire cannot protect them. They see their last hope for survival is to bet on Netanyahu going crazy and revolting against the capital of the empire and declaring himself the emperor in the eastern provinces of the empire. This is, I think, where we're going. And that's a lesson, again, from history for people to learn.